Liv is adjusting to the drastic changes in her life after transforming into a zombie. She's swept into solving crimes with a newbie detective who doesn't know her psychic abilities come from the eaten brains. Before her life turned upside down, Olivia Liv Moore was a medical resident engaged to her fiancé, Major. One night, Liv's colleague, Marcy, invites her to a boat party on Lake Washington, and Major encourages her to go and have fun. At the party, a zombie outbreak terrorizes the partygoers, and the boat catches on fire. The following day, Liv wakes up in a body bag on the shore, pale and with white streaks in her hair. 5 months later, Liv purchases Bronzer and a Night of the Living Dead DVD. The cashier gives her a strange look due to her pale skin and white hair. In the apartment she shares with her best friend Peyton, Liv is surprised by her mother, brother, and ex-fiancé with an intervention regarding her lack of motivation in life for the past 5 months. Her mother thinks she's throwing her life away when she left her residency and broke off her engagement. When Liv realizes the true nature of their visit, she promises to go out more and volunteer at the Children's Hospital haunted house. In the medical examiner's office morgue, where Liv works as an assistant to Ravi, Jane Doe lies on the examining table. Ravi says the body was inside a garbage truck and instructs his assistant to finish the autopsy. When she's alone, Liv removes the victim's brain and weighs it. Moments later, she sprinkles brain chunks on noodles and covers them in hot sauce. She proceeds to eat her meal but is caught off guard when Ravi suddenly returns. Minutes later, Ravi examines her, and she asks how he figured out she was a zombie. He says the victims of the Lake Washington massacre were missing significant brain mass. While his colleagues attributed this to the fish, he theorized a rabies-like infection. Ravi also admits he suspected her condition when he confirmed she was at the boat party and when the brains of the bodies in the morgue started missing. Ravi notes Liv's resting heart rate is 10 beats per minute. The zombie is perplexed that Ravi isn't afraid of her because she's terrified of her family and friends knowing. Ravi says he used to work for the Center for Disease Control, also known as the CDC, and figured a man-made plague was bound to happen. He mentions a new substance on the streets called utopium and asks if she took any at the party, and she's sure she didn't. Liv recalls a man, Blaine, offering her a substance to snort, but she declined. The man touches her inappropriately, so she pushes him away. The commotion happened immediately after, and she remembers Blaine becoming a zombie and throwing her off the boat, inadvertently scratching her arm. Seconds later, Liv assures her boss she partakes in brains infrequently, and only because if she doesn't, she becomes dumber and meaner. The hot sauce is the only thing she can taste anymore, so she covers her food with it. Suddenly, Detective Clive Babineau enters, holding a pair of novelty handcuffs found in the garbage truck next to Jane Doe. When Liv sees the handcuffs, she has a vision from Jane Doe's point of view getting arrested, next to a newspaper with Obama's election on it. When she comes out of the vision, she tells Clive that Jane Doe was arrested for shoplifting in Vancouver in 2008. The detective asks how she got the information, and she says it was just a hunch. Ravi gets on the computer and finds a certain Stephanie Germanotta, matching Jane Doe's prints, who was arrested for shoplifting in Vancouver in 2008. Clive grows suspicious, so Ravi lies and says Liv is psychic. After Clive leaves, the zombified woman explains that after she eats a person's brains, she has visions of their memories. The next day, at the haunted house, Liv suddenly has the urge to steal a few plastic eyeballs. A scream behind her triggers a vision, and she sees a man wearing a balaclava attacking Jane Doe. When the man removes the mask, she recognizes the local TV weatherman, Johnny Frost. At the morgue, Ravi pushes Liv to tell Clive about her vision. In the police station, Liv deals Clive's stapler and Detective Pratt's family picture. From Clive's desk, she sees Lieutenant Suzuki and the other detectives laughing at an embarrassed Clive. When Clive returns to his desk, Liv wonders why his colleagues are singing a Lady Gaga song at him. It turns out Stephanie Germanotta is Lady Gaga's real name, which Jane Doe probably used an alias during her arrest. Liv then tells Clive about seeing Johnny Frost in her vision. She's about to leave when Clive suggests they talk to the weatherman together. In the studio, Clive shows Frost Jane Doe's picture, and his expression gives him away. He asks them if Titania recorded their sessions and is shocked when they tell him the woman is dead. Frost has an alibi for the night of the crime, but Clive wants him to tell them everything he knows about Tatiana. In Frost's office, he shows Clive and Liv the escort website with Tatiana's picture. The vision Liv saw was one of their role-playing scenarios. Frost mentions Tatiana's friend, Tess, an escort also featured on the website. Before leaving the office, the zombie steals a snow globe off Frost's desk. Later, outside Tess's apartment, the escort speaks Romanian when she sees Clive's badge, but Liv answers her, surprising herself by knowing the language. Tessa's neighbor, Truman, opens his door and asks if Clive and Liv are harassing her, but she tells him to go back inside his apartment. Clive then tells the woman that Tatiana is dead, and she's spooked. She insists she knows nothing and closes the door, but does provide her friend's full name, Tatiana Korza. Later, at Tatiana's apartment, Liv finds the victim's phone. They listen to a voice message from Tess telling Tatiana to return to the suite, calling her a klepto and saying they'll never work with her again. The detective discerns there must be another girl with Tess. Afterward, the zombified woman deduces her consumption of Tatiana's brain made her fluent in Romanian and gave her the urge to steal. Seconds later, the zombie looks over at the balcony and has a vision. She sees Tatiana thrown off the balcony by a man demanding his ring back. When she comes out of the vision, Liv is more determined to find whoever ended Tatiana's life. They return to Tessa's apartment, and Truman tells them she left after they came to see her. He mentions Monica, another escort whose picture is on the website. Hours later, Ravi observes Liv's blood under a microscope and says he's learning more about her condition, which could lead to a cure. She has never thought about a possible treatment and expected to stay a zombie forever. That night, Liv goes to Major's house, renewed by a feeling of hope after Ravi's potential cure. Before she can knock on his door, she realizes that roping Major in with only a slim chance of a cure could end up hurting him again. As she turns to leave, she hears sounds from inside the house and sees Major playing video games with another woman. That night, Liv lies awake in bed, heartbroken at seeing Major moving on. The next day, Lieutenant Suzuki informs Clive that Detective Pratt will be handling the Jane Doe case moving forward. Clive is disappointed, but Pratt tells him to follow his leads with Johnny Frost and the neighbor. In the apartment, Peyton is exasperated seeing Liv being her unmotivated self and wishes her friend would help herself. After Peyton's words, Liv returns the things she stole and is determined to find Tatiana's killer. While waiting at Clive's desk, Liv returns Pratt's family picture and overhears him receiving Monica's location from the IT guys and writing it down on a notepad. In the morgue, Clive says Frost told him Tatiana mentioned having a barbusted pork, or a bearded pig. Clive ascertains that Tatiana was talking about a bearded cop, likely Pratt, which is why he wants to take Clive off the case. Liv remembers that Pratt knows where Monica is, so Clive shades Pratt's notepad, giving them the address. In a house in the woods, Pratt has Tess and Monica tied up in chairs. He demands they tell him where his wedding ring is. He fears how his wife will react when she returns from vacation and finds out he lost the one-of-a-kind ring. Outside, Clive tells Liv to stay in the car. Meanwhile, Tess says that Tatiana couldn't help stealing things, but Pratt knows Tatiana didn't have the ring, so it must be one of them. Scared, Monica admits to pawning the ring for money for school and knew Tatiana would take the blame. As Pratt threatens to shoot the women, Tess looks over at an approaching Clive, and Pratt follows her gaze. He shoots at Clive and runs up the stairs. When Clive gets to the women, they tell him where Pratt went. Outside, Liv sees Pratt drop down from the second-story window and get into his car, so she drives Clive's car onto the driveway, blocking Pratt. From the upstairs window, Clive sees Pratt shoot Liv and pull her out of the car before driving off. When Clive runs outside, Liv is now gone. Meanwhile, as Pratt drives away, Liv smashes the windshield while on the car's roof. She grabs the steering wheel and causes the vehicle to swerve and crash into a tree. She's thrown several feet away while Pratt is unconscious on the car's hood. Liv, who now has red eyes and superhuman strength, approaches Pratt and is about to feed on him when Clive catches up to them. The zombie's eyes return to normal before she faces Clive. He's confused why she seems alright when he saw her get shot. She says Pratt missed, she just played dead and chased after the car. Then, Clive instructs her to tend to the woman, and as she walks away, she covers up the bullet hole in her chest. Later, in the morgue, Ravi removes the bullet from Liv's chest, commends her for saving the women's lives, and hands her a paper bag of brains. The next day, while taking a nap, Liv has a vision of Blaine chasing a man down. 1 month later, Lola and Artie return to Lola's loft and find her artist husband, Javier, lifeless on the floor with a paintbrush stabbed through his eye. Hours later, Clive speaks with an inconsolable Lola while Liv and Ravi take evidence from Javier's body. Minutes later, the detective joins them, and Ravi estimates the time of death to be around 6 to 7 p.m. The paintbrush was stabbed in the orbital cavity and hit the carotid artery. Clive thinks Lola did it, but Liv reminds him that the woman had an alibi. Later, in the morgue, Liv scrapes the brain tissue from the paintbrush and eats it inside a pizza roll. The next day, Major drops off the last of Liv's things from his house. That night, the zombie has a nightmare about Blaine again. The next day, Liv has a vision when she sees a picture of a couple in a magazine. From Javier's point of view, he's undressing a young woman, then they hear someone walk in. Later, Liv tells Clive about the vision, and he thinks the person who walked in was Lola. At the loft, Artie lets Clive and Liv in and takes them to Lola, and they see the young woman in Liv's vision consoling her. Lola introduces the woman, Tasha, as one of Javier's lovers. Minutes later, while the detective talks to Lola, Liv checks Tasha out and flirts with her. Lola implies that she and Javier had an open marriage and he never wanted children because his paintings were his children. After speaking with Lola, Clive receives Ravi's email saying the killer was right-handed and around 6'2" or 6'3" due to the angle of the paintbrush. Liv returns to the morgue, giving an over-the-top description of Blaine to the police sketch artist. The sketch artist hands her the drawing and she improves on it with Javier's skills. In the interrogation room, Clive speaks with Artie, Javier's art dealer, who says he was in the restaurant from 6 to 9:30 p.m. Clive asks what his relationship with Lola is like, and he maintains that they are just friends. Clive asks him what his height is, and he answers 6'2". He mentions that the suspect may be a jilted ex-boyfriend of one of Javier's many lovers. The next day, Liv purchases art supplies and starts painting in the apartment. Later that day, Blaine shows up at the morgue, says he heard she was looking for him, and holds up her sketch that Ravi had sent to the other survivors. Liv says she thought she was the only one, and so did he. He comments on how easy it is for her to obtain brains through her job, and how he's also experienced raging out when their eyes turn red, and they turn violent. Minutes later, Ravi joins them and he examines Blaine. Blaine asks Liv how she turned, and she says he scratched her, but the man doesn't remember doing it. Suddenly, Blaine accidentally knocks over a tray of instruments and Liv has a vision of Tasha's ex-boyfriend threatening Javier. Instead of leaving Blaine with Ravi, Liv asks Blaine to go on ahead because she doesn't feel comfortable leaving her friend alone with the zombie. In the police station, Liv recognizes Tasha's ex-boyfriend and points him out to Clive. During the interrogation, Liv flirts with a man who says he's 6'3". He admits to barging into the loft and confronting Javier, but not to his murder. He also says Javier was having an affair with Artie's 18-year-old daughter, Becca. Meanwhile, Blaine approaches Jackie in a hotel bar and the two head to her room and make love. The next day, Major drops by the apartment and is puzzled when he sees Liv painting and listening to jazz music, which he thought she didn't like. She touches his shoulder and kisses his cheek, and Major leaves confused. Later, Blaine returns to the morgue and asks Liv if she can help him out with his brain supply from time to time, and they agree to meet up later. That afternoon, Hutch and Dougie find Blaine in an alleyway, where he waits for Liv. The two men order him to get in the car because their boss wishes to see him. Then, Liv sees Blaine dealing with the sketchy-looking men and walks away. Blaine gets in the car and attacks the men violently, causing blood to cover all the windows. In the hotel room, Jackie answers the door and lets Blaine in. She's grown pale and has white streaks in her hair. He tells her she's a zombie now and proposes a monthly meal plan of brains for $25,000 a month. In the morgue, Liv thinks she and Ravi shouldn't communicate with Blaine anymore because she doesn't trust him. Minutes later, Clive arrives and asks them to join him at Javier's art show. He talked to a waitress who said Artie left the restaurant to use an ATM near the loft at 6:45 p.m., but records show that Artie is bankrupt. At the art show, they overhear a man saying that Javier's paintings have tripled in price since he passed, and Clive thinks Artie was aware of that happening. Clive sees Lola and asks her how long Artie was gone when he used the ATM, and she says 20 minutes. But according to the detective, the walk from the restaurant to the loft only takes 5 minutes. Liv snoops into the back room, where Tasha's ex-boyfriend corners her. She looks at a painting and envisions a pregnant Becca getting an ultrasound. When the man grabs her, she throws him off with ease and escapes. Meanwhile, Clive accuses Artie of being in love with Lola, but the man insists he only thought she deserved better than Javier. Liv joins them and says she believes Artie killed Javier because the artist got Becca pregnant, but Artie is shocked at this revelation. Abruptly, Ravi interrupts and corrects his initial theory about the killer's height. If the killer was standing on a platform, they could also stab Javier at the same angle. Clive then confronts Lola when he remembers that she said Javier never wanted children, but she never said if she felt the same way. He believes she killed her husband even before she left for the restaurant. Enraged, Artie asks Lola why she never told him about Becca's pregnancy. Artie admits that when he returned from the ATM, Lola arrived 30 minutes late. She was out of breath and he wiped a red stain on her cheek with a napkin thinking it was paint. He knew she had done it when they found Javier's body, but she also knew he would cover for her. Lola confesses that she did it because Javier was leaving her to start a family with an 18-year-old girl. As Clive arrests Lola, Tasha's ex-boyfriend approaches Liv menacingly, but Clive knocks him out. With Javier's passionate brain influencing her, Liv decides to visit Major. He lets her in but thinks she's acting weird. She kisses him, but he pushes her away and airs out his grievances. She's been cold to him for the past 6 months, while he did everything he could for her affection. Liv has a sad look on her face and he asks her to leave. Later, Liv and Peyton hang up Liv's painting in the apartment.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.